Sure, Hugh Jackman can punch a face, but how good is he at carrying a tune? Welcome to Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Half-Ass Movie Podcast, a show where we put together a half-ass theme as an excuse to watch movies. My name is Adam Portress, and I'm joined today by a man voted most likely to break out into song, Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet.
That's not true.
And he taught Zac Efron everything he knows, Bruce Leslie.
I'm so old that when I was in school, history class was called current events.
He's going to the Catskills. Welcome back, everybody. We are.
If you're a Patreon subscriber, you'll enjoy that.
See, these are these deep cuts. You know, the other people who don't know. That's fine for them. They'll figure it out one of these days. Well, guys, we are still on the road to Deadpool Wolverine, and as such, we're looking back at the movies. We're already done up with all of our Ryan Reynolds, and we're on to Hugh Jackman now. Here, it's second week of Hugh Jackman, all leading up to their joint venture on the big screen with Deadpool Wolverine. We got robot fighting with bad Hugh Jackman dad. So now we've got to singing. There we go. That seems the logical progression for all of these things, right?
Yeah. Singing is the only... Guys, let's make a deal. Right now, going forward, we cop rock this. We sing this episode.
Oh, man.
Listen, there's...
Enjoy your show, fellas.
All of a sudden, Sean's just like, I think I'm going through a tunnel. You remember the back of So, yeah, this is... Hugh Jackman, we'll talk about a varied career. As much as, Stallone has been great in action films and stuff his entire life, you never see him showing up in musicals.
He did show up in one.
Well, okay, fair for that one.
Does Rhinestone count?
Well, I mean, I'm perhaps more of the theatrical type, perhaps.
It's like you've never heard the song Drinkenstein before.
But I guess, fine. Let's have Arnold Schwarzenegger. Show me an Arnold Schwarzenegger singing movie. You got one of them on your back pocket?
Man, I'm pretty sure he played one of the young Nazis in The Sound of Music, if you go back and look.
I was in the deep background. Terrible. So today we're talking The Greatest Showman from what year, Bruce?
2017
it is. This was I remember seeing this in the theater and everything, so it's not too awful long ago movie. What kind of brought this one about?
Well, I mean, I chose it as an extreme example of Jackman's range. I kind of thought like that's part of what we're trying to tackle here.
Yeah, it was a good call
in the introduction to this new sort of format for the show. And I can't think of anything that really ranges further from the role of Wolverine than this role as P.T. Barnum. And, he has, I think within the last 6 months, finished up a run as the Music Man on Broadway. He loves musical theater. He's a guy who's like sort of did the opposite. There are people who want to get big in musical theater or on stage so that they can go to Hollywood and make some bank in the movies. He did it the other way around.
You're Josh Gad.
Yeah, he made enough clout in the movies that he brute forced his way onto what he really loved, which is Broadway, which, man, that is so cool. And it's a very non-American thing. In the U.S., they really discourage physically fit or athletic boys from going into musical theater at all. But in other countries, it's very strongly encouraged. So you get a Hugh Jackman. Well, of course, he's not going to come from the U.S. He's going to come from Australia or whatever they call it these days. But I just brought this in to show the range of this actor and also the range of musical theater.
Man, Hugh Jackman as Harold Hill, take my money now. I will give it all to you. That's just like, holy, because Music Man is my favorite musical of all time. Absolutely love it. And so he would be perfect for that role because just like he's got the charm and the smarm that you would need for Harold Hill. So
I think I saw Rex Harrison in that role.
How old was he when what?
Well, I mean,
I've
talking about the movie, right?
Oh. Yeah, I've only seen the movie. Isn't that Rex Harrison?
Man, you're asking the wrong dude.
No. All right. Well, let's go. Before we get into this movie properly and everything, let's remind our folks that they can support this show by heading on over to patreon.com/HMP. Those awesome people get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone. And this week's Dinger Zone, we got a really interesting topic here for you. This is comedy sequels that were better than the original. There's going to be some ones in there that I'm sure everybody will go, yeah. Then plenty that people will go like, are you out of your mind? From almost all of us.
That's mostly Adam's left.
Hey, listen, man, don't spoil things for the people. Just let them go to patreon.com/HMP and sign up at any price. They get all that stuff. Whatever they just figure this show's worth, put it into a dollar form, send it our way, and get yourself more stuff in the exact same process, including the upcoming, we're not there yet, pump the brakes, but we've got a Sweet Chauncey special for you that will start up in a little while. Just kind of, and again, we're kind of priming the brakes here a little bit, just letting you know, like, hey.
I'm working on it right now. I worked on it a little bit last night, a little bit this morning. I want to have a couple in the bank before we release.
We got some good stuff.
I'm me.
And he just knows that you got to get a couple of those
audio
lined up.
only, or they video?
No, just audio.
Perfect. I wonder if people would like to hear Sean try to master the Puppet Master when he watches every single Puppet Master movie and then critiques them.
No, that's not.
Do you want to
see
him die or something? Because I think that might put him over the edge. And
I've seen probably 2 or 3 of those. Like,
well, it's only like 14, so you'll be okay.
I figured as much. No. That's going to be your thing.
Yeah,
I've already got my thing.
Yeah, he's got a spaceship thing. Yeah, you don't need no more things.
Sean likes spaceships.
Yeah, okay, there you go. I think you've just given yourself an assignment.
Do a series called Chucky versus Puppet Master.
There you go. Put it on the thing, and we'll put it on the Patreon, patreon.com/HMP. We really appreciate all of you guys. And drop us an email, will you? halfasspod@gmail.com. We love you. We thank you. Let's get into this here program. Here's the IMDb plotline for The Greatest Showman. As we know, IMDb 100% correct in everything they say and or do. Celebrates, this is how it starts off, celebrates the birth of show business and tells of a visionary who rose from nothing to create a spectacle that became a worldwide sensation. Let me tell you something, IMDb, that is crap beyond crap. That is, ugh.
The birth of show business. We don't usually revisit the words of IMDb, so I'll shut up.
It's really ridiculous. This is written by...
The birth of show business. Get out of here.
a little pat yourself on the back, I think. Written by Jenny Bricks, who wrote the story and screenplay. She's done a lot of TV. She directed an Amanda Bynes movie called What a Girl Wants. 16 episodes of Sex and the City. Bill Condon did the screenplay, and based upon how the credits work and everything, I'd say Bill was brought on for a rewrite and everything. He also wrote 2 big musicals, Chicago and Dreamgirls. Music by John Debney and Joseph Trepanese? I don't know. Sorry, guy.
Trepa not going to work here anymore.
Not going to be. So they wrote the score, and music, the songs themselves by Benji Pesek and Justin Paul, who are a writing team together. They've done a bunch of cool musicals and stuff like that. Those guys are pretty great. Directed by Michael Gracie. He just did a lot of music videos. He's a music video guy, really. Did one from Natasha Bedingfield and Pink, and big history of effects
European
work.
Guy?
I'm not sure where he's from, to be honest. This is starring Hugh Jackman, Michelle Williams, Zac Efron, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, and Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. Yeah, Yam 2, baby. A little Dr. Manhattan in this. Didn't he? Not quite popped yet.
I didn't recognize him with his head covered.
With his head covered, amongst other things. So let's get into it. I saw this.
Homer, I can see your doodle.
I saw this movie in the theater. Again, as a fellow musical fan, Bruce, I was interested in seeing this, and of course, having seen Hugh Jackman sing in many other things previous to this, I knew he was going to be quite capable in his delivery for all of this. So I was down and ready to go.
This was post Les Mis, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Bit. So what else would you have seen him sing in besides this and Les Mis? I'm just curious.
Like he'd done a lot of he'd sung in any little tiny program or stuff that he was in, anytime that he hosted stuff or anything.
Yeah, like at the Oscars, I can remember him. When he did that big musical number, and then he said the line, "The musical is back." I remember that distinctly.
I get the idea. I don't have any inside information or whatever, but the guy loved musical theater. He wanted to be part of the musical. Maybe he wanted to be like the next Fred Astaire, the next kind of guy who could usher in a new generation of musicals. but that performance on the Academy Awards was an audition for him of sorts, because it was during those rehearsals for the 81st Academy Awards that Bill Condon, who was one of the producers, said, you know what, Jackman, you are like a modern day P.T. Barnum. And Jackman expressed interest in doing a movie or a musical, some kind of a musical theater project about Barnum. I think he wanted to go straight to the stage, but because he's a screen actor and sometimes people would rather have, sometimes people would rather have 400 million at the end of a couple of months than to wait 10 years for 500 million.
But at the same time too, though, like, I think a lot of that also comes down to, again, why movies themselves were also created. Instead of having to do this show night after night after night, we do our one show and then we just distribute that around the world.
And it was kind of cool that it was reversed engineered, because Condon said, you know what, Jackman, I think you're the P.T. Barnum. He's like, I want to do a project about P.T. Barnum. They went out and hired a writer to write something. And then after that, they, worked it into getting the book is what you call the story. And then you get people to write the music. So they got Justin Paul and his writing partner, Ben Wutzitz. But I love this, because this is such a reverse story, and talking about the musical being back. This is absolutely a top-down musical, because what most people picture is, you write for the stage, and if it does really well, then you get somebody to come along and make like the motion picture version of your musical, like Chicago or Rent or something like that. Well, this went straight for the motion picture, and this does predate La La Land, if I'm remembering correctly.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, the idea of a musical starting out as a movie isn't totally novel, because, you go back to The Wizard of Oz. There's a long tradition of musical movies from that kind of era, but it's really nice to see one in our lifetime and living memory to show that musical theater is a genre that still exists. It's like Westerns still pump out a Western here or there that nobody goes and sees. Well, it's nice they can still pump out some original musical theater on the grand stage for people who are just eating popcorn and drinking soda, and it doesn't have to be, those diehards that are going out to see the local high school do Oklahoma for the 14th time this year.
And one of the things that I like about this movie is that while it certainly is a movie and everything, it's presented in very much, well, of course, higher stylistically, of course, but it's presented kind of very much like an actual play musical. There's so many things that are just saying, hey, check out everything that's going on here right now.
One of my notes, too, like the costuming and effects are very much stage costuming and stage effects. And this looks so much like something where people could gathered around and said everyone loved the look of the Broadway production, that we have to be true to that in the film, except there was no Broadway production. Like, they just said, we're going to make a film that looks the way that a stage play would look. Because I don't know if you notice in the background doing some of the dancing, we've got Ying and Ying, the Siamese twins.
Mm-hmm.
That is not Hollywood studio major motion picture Siamese twins. That is community theater stage show Siamese twins doing their dancing. And I love it. And the bearded woman, clearly, they just put a beard on the most talented singer they could find.
And the beard, there's one scene, like the first scene, the beard looks good. After that, it looks atrocious. And it's like, it makes me so mad.
They make it clear here that even though there's a beard on her, that the modern person who's supposed to relate to her is the obese female entertainer who feels invisible.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that's kind of what I think, is that most of the people who watch this and feel empowerment and really get behind it aren't seeing her for her beard, but they're seeing her for her maybe non-traditional stage physique.
Yeah, but and it's one of those things, though, that's just like with all of that, it's just like, well, the second that you hear this, this woman sing, you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah. And that is the song that steals the show. I mean, that is the empowerment in a show that, at the end, whatever fandom it finds is a fandom who likes its message of empowerment. And that is the song of empowerment. And she becomes the central figure of empowerment in this show, even though you could argue if they had cast it better, it could have been Tom Thumb who did that.
Yeah. Now, I didn't look at this, but our Napoleon guy here and everything, he's clearly dubbed, right? Like General
Tom Thumb is so clearly dubbed.
It's like, could you and it's not, it doesn't even seem like it would come out of that person's body, you know?
Part of it is that the actual Tom Thumb had this kind of primordial dwarfism that you don't see a lot, so that he looked younger than he was. So I think in order to cast it, they had to get a person who's actually pretty young. I think this person's probably a teenager or younger that's playing Tom Thumb. Okay. So they have the voice of a young person. So they had to try to put an adult voice over it.
Okay. Looked like he's having fun riding that horse, though, boy. Holy cow.
Firing those guns up. Oh, yeah.
I will say, though, that is funny because we get to thankfully, I'll say overall, thankfully, we've gotten to the point in movies and stuff where we're like, hey, we'd prefer not to actually hurt animals and stuff like that. So we've got a little person riding the horse and everything, dressed as Napoleon, shooting the guns and stuff. I do love when we get to the kind of not first person, but just like horse's perspective, the back of the horse's head looking at him while he's shooting the guns and everything, of how it's just so clearly him just sitting in a little seat that they're just pulling along a green screen and everything, and him just wildly shooting in the air. It's not the best, but it's the best because it looks kind of crummy. I love it.
I think this movie also, this show is kind of always one to push forward. Like, is there a difference in quote unquote high art and low art? Like, is it better to write a book that 1,000 people love, but each one of those people are literary professors at universities? Or is it better to be like the lady who wrote 50 Shades of Grey and just reach 100 million people? You know, like what really defines art, the audience or some higher intellect that not all humans can grasp? Like, should you serve the audience or should the audience serve you? That's a big question here on like what counts as theater. And you know, we got a lot of talk here where this is in musical theater, and there's still sometimes debate now, like, is Cirque du Soleil musical theater or just an exhibition in a theater? Like, does being in a theater make you theater? There's a whole lot of arguments still going on. And I think there's a nice meta argument here. Like, is this a film? Is this a show? Is this high art? Is this low art? Let's see what people say.
Well, speaking of which, because we're kind of, one of the things that I find interesting about this movie, and that I guess I didn't necessarily suspect going in the first time and everything, is while we are a period piece and everything, the music itself is not necessarily evocative of that time, nor is it specifically quite evocative of present time, you know, in 2017 or anything, but it's very much in just the world of what I'll just call modern musical time, if you will, as far as music goes.
It doesn't even have a circus theme kind of sound to it either.
No, it's just very just kind of, lack of a better word, motivational kind of songs. I would call it
mass market musical theater.
Yeah, which isn't bad. It's got its own place, and while it's not always the best thing in the world to me, I will watch something like this, and this is going to be strap in, boys and girls. I'll watch something like this that has like this vibe and everything over something like Hamilton, which I'm just like, okay, you've shown me this one note, and that's about it. At least.
Oh wow, what a surprise! You took a shot at Hamilton. I should have written it down.
Hamilton's got some music that I just love.
I should have.
Can we calm down for a second and let me qualify and say
you're the one who's like, and I'm like, oh wow.
No, can we just slow down for a minute and discuss musicals in general? Because
I just want to say real fast, I don't hate Hamilton. Don't get it wrong. Right. I don't hate the movie. I think it's fine. I think it's overblown, and I think people like it a little bit more than they probably should. I do think it's good. I did enjoy it. Just so everyone knows.
Musical theater is like punk bands. Somebody else's favorite punk band, you don't get it. Your favorite punk band, other people don't get.
That's fair.
That way with musical theater. But anyway, what I wanted to do is just ask a couple of questions about musicals in general, because with the new format of the show, I could see musicals popping up on occasion. Particularly, it's like, hey, did you know so-and-so did a musical? Mm-hmm. So should we talk a little bit about this, since this is the first musical in the rebrand? I know we did at least one musical back as Hero Movie Podcast, but since we're doing our first one here, should we just talk about musicals in general? Like, do we at least all three consider musicals to be a movie? Because I don't really consider every musical that you can see in the cinema to be a quote unquote movie.
Okay, that seems like a weird semantical thing, but like track it down for me.
Okay, so like if what you've got is an actual stage production of Hamilton with a live audience, you're performing it in the theater on Broadway, and you've just got cameras set up, and then you're releasing that footage edited together.
Not a movie.
Is like a video presentation of a stage performance.
Correct.
But what we got here, these shots were set up for the cinema, for the theater. This is a movie first.
Right.
Like, there is no other purpose of this performance. And I guess that's why I would like, if you went to the theater and you watched a complete video of the NCAA championship game, would you leave and say, wow, that's the best sports movie I ever saw?
No. I don't think anybody would say that. I don't think anyone would call it a movie.
And that's how it is if it's a stage production. It's like, that can't be the best movie. You just saw a video of a stage production. You didn't see a movie.
Right. Yeah. Hamilton is definitely not is a musical, but is not a movie musical. No.
Yeah. Okay. So back to that. Sean, I'm asking this question. You don't like musicals in general?
No.
Are there any exceptions to that at all? Because like I didn't like musicals in the least until like you see the right musical. Sometimes it's a gateway musical. I did not have any enjoyment in musicals until I saw Grease, and then I like musicals.
I have tried, being as close to gay as you can possibly be without actually enjoying the company of men. I have tried, and I cannot get into it. I've Lord knows I've tried. It's so boring to me. It's just so boring. I've even seen musicals live, on our Patreon. We were talking about some of the live musicals I've seen, and I totally forgot I've also seen Hedwig live. And that was that one I liked a little bit more, I think, because it's not like musical songs.
It's punk like rocky rock songs. And it's like it's a spectacle and a half. So
right. And so like my problem more with musicals is that they feel like Broadway musicals, and I just don't care. And like, so are there exceptions to the rule when it comes to like Broadway style music? No, I can't think of a single one where I'm like, but you know what is great is this. Like, I don't have one of those. There has to be something else to it in order for me to like it. Like I just mentioned, Hedwig, Avenue Q, I'm there because it's funny. Book of Mormon, I'm there because it's funny, not because of the music. And I can't think of a single musical that's like a Broadway musical where I'm like, no, that is great. Like, I can't think of one. I've seen a bunch. Like, you guys were talking about The Music Man earlier. I've seen that, and I just don't care. And I've tried, and I can't do it. But yeah, these are movies. Like, as long as you're not filming a stage play, like, these are all movies.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there are plenty of those stage plays out there that I kind of want to steer away from.
No, we don't need that.
Can you not like the musical? Like, here's what I'm trying to ask. Even if one is not a fan of musicals, can one still be a fan of the songs?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that I'm not.
I guess that was going to be my follow-up, is if, even though you didn't particularly care for the show, were there any of the songs you kind of find to be earwigs, or any of the songs
I've never seen this man tap his toe in his entire life. You think that a musical is going to start this thing? I don't know.
You can tap organs other than your toe.
My problem is that, I don't find them. It's just not my style of music, like, in any way. It's just not and there's a bit of Stage Kids feel to this.
Oh, there's a lot of Stage Kids feel to this.
And I think that that kind of music just doesn't appeal to me as much as I've tried.
So here's something that I didn't remember, because this was only the second time I've seen this. And something I didn't remember was just like Well, first off, I didn't remember Zac Efron was in this. And then when I see
he's your guy.
Yeah, when I see him step on stage, I remember like this guy is a musical theater icon. Like when you step into this environment, when you're going away from mainstream kind of entertainment and you're stepping into musical theater, Hugh Jackman needs to ask Zac Efron for notes. Because one thing that's popular, if you know any young theater people, like of the current people working in Broadway now, the bulk of the workforce, the people between, let's say 25 and 35, 25 and 40, 80% of the women and 100% of the men are there because they had crushes on Zac Efron growing up.
Sure.
And like having him step back on stage this was a really big deal to a certain age group to have Zac Efron returning to the musicals post High School Musical, like the leading man for a generation, going back in and kind of taking over the baton at the end of this. There aren't very many actors out there that I could say can hold their own with Hugh Jackman in a really demanding role. But Zac Efron here was right at home. There are times I would say he didn't only hold his own with Hugh Jackman, but he outshone Hugh Jackman. And that's just because it's like you can have Liza Minnelli in a musical with somebody. Well, you might as well forget it. I don't care if it is Meryl Streep. She's next to Liza Minnelli and it's a musical.
Yeah, Efron is really fantastic in this. His singing is great, dancing is fantastic. Like him and Zendaya have chemistry. Yeah, so like he's just pre his Prince Charming head and everything. So he's like he's just on the cusp of everything. This was the first thing of note that I saw Zendaya in, and
Zendaya
I thought she was really great.
She must have just always been amazing. She's amazing here. This is Zendaya. She must have been like 14 here because this movie's old and she's still young. But everything
I think she's much older than we all suspect her to actually be. Like I think everybody,
still not an old lady.
Well, no, but she's like early 20s as opposed to like because she looks very young.
She's like 28 now, 27, 28.
Well, see, there you go. Even
if
it's
only
even worse.
We could get that information almost instantaneously.
Nah, thank you. I don't need it.
If only.
I looked it up because I wanted to make sure the age gap wasn't too creepy in this movie. And she was like 18 here, or 20 here, I think is what she was when they filmed it. But boy, she must have just always been amazing. Like I didn't really know much about her before she was MJ in Spider-Man. Then you go back and you watch this and you see scenes over from other stuff.
I just recently only saw
someone who grew up as a child actor.
Yeah, I only recently just saw a clip of her in a Nickelodeon show, and she was like, you're just looking and you're like, oh, that's clearly the standout kid who's like acting circles around the other kids that are in this Nickelodeon production and stuff. She's doing way better than they are. So it's like, okay.
So I just looked it up. Guess how old she is.
27.
What about you, Adam?
I would have thought 24, 25.
38.
No,
she's not 38.
No, she's not.
I'd be like, black don't crack indeed. Wow.
She's 28 years old.
I was close with 27.
At the time of this recording, she is 28.
38. That'd have been amazing. It's like,
wow. Are you guys aware that this movie isn't 100% historically accurate?
Get out of town. Honestly, the first time when I was watching this, like all I could think of is just the great liberal Hollywood person that's just going, we're gonna do this upright, and like at the same time going, you realize what you're doing.
What if we're putting on a show was a movie? Like that's what this is.
It's just like It wants to pat itself on the back when I'm sure P.T. Barnum was an awful person who exploited people for their disabilities and stuff. We weren't patting them on the back and loving them and saying, you know what, you deserve a seat at the table. They were going, get back in your crate.
You know, Rebecca Ferguson in this movie, she's from the Mission Impossible movies, I think. She plays Jenny Lind, the Swedish Nightingale, and she kind of throws that unwanted kiss on P.T. Barnum that the newspapers take a picture of and it turns into a pencil drawing somehow.
I feel like that's probably like the light version of what happened if I'm to venture
in the real world, everybody agrees P.T. Barnum was knocking the bottom out of that. Like that is why he left his family and went on tour, was 100% knock them boots with that Swedish Nightingale.
By the way, she looks fantastic in this movie. She looks as better than she has in any movie. Her makeup is perfect. The singing is great. Rebecca Ferguson destroys.
You're saying woman with a history of being a gorgeous Hollywood action star is still gorgeous?
Yeah,
I think he's taking a page out of your book, Bruce.
Oh, okay.
Listen,
because last week you said I'm going out on a limb here. This is a good looking lady.
I'm just saying, she they don't gussy her up a ton in the Mission Impossible movies because she's rough and tumble gal, In this, they make her up really, really nice, and she just, she's got a layer of elegance that she doesn't have in the movie where she's chopping people in the throat, is what I'm saying.
Sean, I know just in theory, do you think that they skimped on the makeup for those Mission Impossible movies?
Well, listen, Adam says a lot of things. He's a very stream of conscious talker.
What?
And so sometimes he says things like they didn't put a whole lot of makeup on Rebecca Ferguson for Mission Impossible, and you just let it roll. You just let that roll.
Yeah, okay.
In comparison to this movie, how am I not wrong?
They won the Academy Award for Best Makeup was Mission Impossible featuring Rebecca Ferguson.
I don't know why I'm getting dumped on today. I don't get it.
I don't know why either. But you do keep saying because
it feels good that it's not me for a change.
Well, he's the one with the dumb hot takes today. They're pretty dumb. Your takes are pretty bad.
Hey, listen, they can only know that those takes are dumb if they go over to patreon.com/dingerzone and sign up at any price.
At least at the end of the day, if I wrote the IMDb for this, I would say a historically accurate movie about the creation of the circus tent, because that's kind of what this is all about. At the end, this is how the circus tent was invented.
Yeah, I don't mind our big giant liberties that everything takes, and to a degree, there is a subgenre, if you will, not officially known, of Hollywood that's the revisionist history movie and stuff like that, where it's almost just in the perfect world, this is how it could have been, and if in the perfect world we live in, this is how P.T. Barnum would have treated everybody and all this kind of good stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's in a perfect world, there's something about it that I kind of like movies like that, where we just kind of gloss over all the bad stuff and just go in a perfect world, this is what this would be, right? This movie falls in that kind of category.
I love it.
He's always got a spring in his step and a smile on his face.
I love the backdrop, when they're on the roof at the beginning and everything. This just kind of the painted backdrop, just giving it again that sort of musical feel and everything like that. Just the production design of all of it. And I think this director, coming from an effects background and everything, really made him smart at editing, number one, because you have to edit the crap out of this movie, and just editing with the music and everything is just so on point. And his mixture of all the special effects and stuff, the amazing, when Efron and Zendaya are having their duo and everything, their duet, and they're spinning around on this rope and everything, it looks fantastic. It doesn't look like they're on some kind of real crappy green screen or everything. He's doing it upright, because again, this is a guy who comes from an effects background and everything, so all of it looks really, really good. And even CGI animals, I think they put them a little bit CGI on purpose, just to make sure that that they're CGI and that they're not actually killing actual live animals anymore. That's part of me what I think when they do that, because they don't always look as real as they should.
You can even kill a CGI animal on screen now without some kind of trigger warning.
Yeah, it's got a bear has to rape Leonardo DiCaprio before we're allowed to kill it.
Now you're talking.
But overall, I like the music in this movie, but there's not a ton of them that I kind of I remember them in the movie while I'm watching it, and I go, I remember these songs. They are memorable and stuff. But I also find that the second that I'm done with it, they don't necessarily stick around with me.
Well, A Million Dreams was Silas's first audition song, so I'm always going to remember that. And he crushed it. He did a great job on that.
Because you had to just keep hearing
Good
it
job,
over and over and over again.
Now there's talk about him locally being P.T. Barnum if they ever release a stage production of this. It'd be a nice little full circle.
Yeah, I wonder if I wouldn't be surprised if this didn't get that kind of treatment because it's so set up to do so, right?
I'm absolutely surprised that it hasn't yet. I think the key is this was a Fox production, right? And I don't think Fox really did a lot of that, but now that Disney owns it, it could be in the fast track to their next movie to stage adaptation kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I found out that I didn't really realize because I was trying to figure out what kind of came in for Hugh Jackman in the order and everything, and I just kind of read a little bit about his backstory and history and everything of coming up and really ending up doing plays and stuff like that more, and just that was his initial route and stuff, and then just getting into the other acting stuff to kind of supplement all that and everything. And like you said, Bruce, just having that kind of come around to full circle sort of thing where he is able to kind of get to where he wanted by a very untraditional method of becoming, an absolute giant movie star in order to get yourself on Broadway. What an odd twist and turn that is for a person's career. And that how he met his wife, in his first production and everything, his first play. That's where he met his wife and stuff. So, and then and of course
still together.
They're still together as far as I'm aware.
Okay, because I heard maybe he had separated from his wife and was rumored to be with a 20-something musical theater actress.
Hey, listen, it's Hollywood. What do you want from them? It's kind of what they do over there. That's
what happens when the boy leaves Brisbane. The Brisbane leaves the boy.
Now, I did like how we also kind of leaned into the slight hucksterness of P.T. Barnum, where we get the fat guy and everything, but we're still plumping him up. We're getting the tall guy, but we're still putting some braces on him to make him even taller than he was. So we're juicing
so
it.
Glossed over that, though. They really should have dug in with some of the straight up fraud he did.
Well, I think that's where ultimately this movie has the biggest problem, where it's either going to go one way or the other. This is your fork in the road, is the fact that this is a PG-rated film. If it was PG-13, we could probably push into a little bit more of the controversial area and everything. But I think that if we do, the whole movie itself falls apart, because I think you need that revisionist history bullcrap to get rid of some pretty bad things. And we can tell a fun, good story, and we don't always have to tell the truth, I suppose. That's what I'm saying.
And also, just to go back and correct an error that I recently made, the young trollop who was rumored to be with Hugh Jackman is in fact 49 years old, so not as young as I said. Woo! It's not a Hollywood thing, it's more age appropriate.
Rob in the middle-age home, that's nice. But at least now I will say this as well. This is another great one. Michelle Williams is awesome for what tiny little role she's got in this thing. She's doing the best with what she has to deal with here. Her musical number is okay. It's a little bit forgettable and stuff. But I like that we have a woman who's fairly close enough to his age within this and everything. She still looks really good. She hasn't, plastic surgery herself all to hell and everything. So she looks like a woman of her age and everything. And she's really, really great in this. And it's just she's always in all of her roles, really, except for maybe Dick or something, perhaps. But she's had just a very vulnerable character that she would always kind of bring into stuff. I've always kind of felt that she always feels like somebody that might break in a moment if you're not careful.
I feel like she never really had a breakout role that would overshadow her TV career. I think when you're making that transition from TV to movies, you need that breakout role.
Well, she got that Maryland that put a whole bunch of buzz and stuff within her area, but I don't think enough people had actually seen that.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it.
Yeah, exactly. And then, and then the whole Heath Ledger thing, and I'm sure that nailed her career just a little bit for a while, because obviously that's gonna do some stuff to you. But she's fantastic in this for what she does, and what I really love about the character is that from the get-go, her thing is, yeah, I come from money. I don't care about any of this stuff. She doesn't need all the big things that he feels that he has to promise her in order for, them to have a happy life and everything.
When you grow up broke, a lot of rich girls tell you they don't care about the money. that as soon as their feet are dirty, man, they go back home. Like
you don't see that in this film, though.
You don't see that in this film, but I'm just going to say that this is a trope where it's like when you grow up poor and broke and you're finally making a little bit of dough, you don't care how much she tells you she doesn't care about it. You are so obsessed with, like, you think that was the cause of all your problems was poverty. It's poverty trauma, man. It happens.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm not sure what your argument is.
I don't know if I have an argument.
Because I like that's to me that's the whole crux of the entire movie. It's just called, you don't have to do all this stuff. You're enough for me. It's like what she wanted was an attentive husband. It was a father to her children and everything. They're happy on that rooftop. At the beginning, where they're just sitting there with their kids. That's her moment. She would just be happy to be there for the rest of her life because that's what she actually cares about. She doesn't care about the rich stuff that are, or at least this is how the story presents it. She doesn't care about all that stuff that she came from and everything. That's superfluous to her. That's where she actually wants to be, and that's why I think she's like the most genuine character in this movie. He's a shyster, but that's also just part of his character.
Yeah, they really actually tamped down the shysterness of him a lot for this movie.
It could have been fun, though. Couldn't there have been your first act could have been him just having a lot of I guess they do a tiny bit, but I would have a couple more misadventures where he's kind of screwing up and everything and whatnot. But I think if you do that too much, then your character doesn't become as sympathetic. Because it's like, oh my God, this guy just keeps screwing up. And maybe the circus thing, he just happens to fall into it correctly one time. But that wasn't necessarily due to his mastery of doing all this stuff. He just happens to get something right because this guy seems to screw up a lot. So I think you can only screw up so much before an audience will start, thinking you're just a dummy.
Very true. What do you think, Sean?
I think that is a slippery slope when it comes to P.T. Barnum because, when you learn how he made his name for himself in the first place, that ain't great. And, there's a whole lot of there's racism and there's the exploitative nature of him. And, and it's kind of hard to back him. But I know a bit about P.T. Barnum just because he's a Connecticut boy. But I think that they did what they could do, you don't really want to get into all the stuff with P.T. Barnum because you just scratch the surface and you're like, oh, yikes. So just make it this basically fictional version of him and, keep everybody happy. I think that if you dip your toe in too far, I can remember there were all of those articles that came out. Articles, like I'm 100 years old.
When my periodicals came inside the mail carrier,
when my soft goods came, there were all of those gotcha moments where it's like, hey, the real P.T. Barnum, they're really washing over all how horrible a guy, all of that stuff. And I think that I think they were right to do what they did. I mean, basically it's barely based on P.T. Barnum,
Yeah, it's based on the idea.
It's the way to do it.
Because I think there's a good drama movie.
1950s, 1960s musical theater, that sort of enthusiasm of you just take a person and take their legend and we're making this about the legend and not the person. I mean, it's totally in tune with what they're trying to channel.
Exactly. That's great. The legend of P.T. Barnum. That's precisely what this is. Yeah.
I've got, I've got the correlation to this because they made this movie, which is that, Ty Cobb was an amazing baseball player, and he came from literally nothing, and he became the best baseball player of his era. And that is significant that he did that. However, when you make a movie that's based on Ty Cobb's real life, like they did, and he's the worst, he's just the worst human being on the planet. Yes. And he is the worst human being on the planet. And they're like, no, we're gonna stick to the facts on this one. It is a hard watch.
Very much so.
And so because that's really what I was trying to find. I was trying to find a correlation of like, hey, did they where is that biography of a guy who was terrible but did this one thing that was pretty great? And that's the one.
Let me ask you this: was Tommy Lee Jones acting like Tommy Lee Jones in that movie, but he played baseball?
Yeah, of course, because it's Tommy Lee Jones.
He was retired at this point, and he was also impotent.
Oh man! So he was a fun time, is what you're saying?
So I think here's the real question. I think this is what really gets at the root at it, is how do you guys feel about circuses?
Yeah, I thought about that while I was driving in the car today, and it was just like, it was a question I thought about bringing up, but I'm so glad that you did, Bruce, because I totally forgotten about it. I have never, ever been to the circus.
Oh, wow, really?
No.
That might be the generation gap, too, because when I was a kid, it seemed like, well, also growing up in Connecticut where P.T. Barnum came from, like there are circuses everywhere.
I feel like I had a school trip to the circus once a year in elementary school. Like that's how the circus was embedded into my community.
I think
I will be honest with you. I'm not a fan of circus of the circus. I find it like watching a musical. Honestly, I'd rather be doing
some combination.
I'd rather be doing something else.
I never quite got the appeal of it. Like, I guess to a degree, but like never enough to go like, Mom, Dad, can we go to the circus? First of all, didn't like clowns, not a clown fan. So I think that was part of a big turn off of it, is like, I do not want to be going to see clowns. But then the other part's just like, I don't know, lions jumping through hoops and stuff. It's like, have you seen it on television? How different could it be,
I think circus was like an all ages or a family equivalent of vaudeville or a children's equivalent of vaudeville, that this is a thing that entertained people at a time when you didn't have TV. Yeah. So, yeah, I understand. Like for you, Adam, you've seen lions jump through hoops on TV, but if they hadn't first done it in the circus, they wouldn't do it on TV.
Yeah, exactly.
So imagine no internet, no TV, or even no internet, but limited TV. Like when Sean and I were kids, cable was not what it is now. And I mean, can you coming through town? It's just different. You get to go see an elephant in real life. There's no zoos where most people live.
It's a totally different. Like I mean, like it's from a bygone era for sure. It's one of those things where like all day. Let's say you're in the Midwest. You're a farmer. All you know is corn all day. Like you're working a cornfield all day long. You've been doing it since you were barely able to speak, and you turned 7 and a circus comes to your town and you're seeing animals you didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You're seeing people who are like defying death. You're seeing things like you're seeing a clown, which seems which you're probably a little standoffish about, but they're squirting water in their face and they're hopping out of cars, and like it's just the funniest, like, oh, you know what, they're funny enough, so it's fine, like stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so like you're seeing stuff that you're never going to see, but the second that radio and television comes into your lives, the circus is gone. And that's kind of what happened here. Like the circus is it's a vestige of a time that doesn't exist anymore. It's like going to wave at ships as they leave port.
Yeah, we got to go down to say bye to the Merrimack.
Right.
A lot of the success of the P.T. Barnum style circus too wasn't just that you don't see it very often, but you're probably only going to see this show maybe once in your life.
Right.
Because there's a whole lot of gimmicks there that are really one-time humbugs. The more you look at it, the more it starts to fall apart.
I've always liked the idea of it all, but never like it, never the execution, never something that I was just like, oh, that's what we need to go to or something like that. It would just never quite appealed. And that's what I was thinking. I'm like, I think on a regular basis, I think Gen X is probably the last generation to go to the circus on a, if you ask the majority of them, I would say more than not. Outside of like, if you ask millennials, I'd say much less of us went to the circus at any point.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I probably went to 3 circuses my whole life.
300% more than me.
Yeah.
I went to more than 3, but you go to one every year during elementary school. How many years is elementary school? 5, so maybe
I think 11.
Yeah, something like that. I've probably been to less than 11 circuses, but it feels like I've been to a lot.
Yeah. Because all you need to do is go the one time and you're like, well, that's a circus. That's what circuses are like.
And, when people started to say maybe we should treat animals with a little bit of respect, that hurt the circuses a lot because they depended on abusing animals in their own way to do a lot of what they did.
Sure.
When I worked in TV news, they would get like tickets to things every now and then, just like a handful of stuff to give out to whomever and blah, 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 blah. And one day we came across tickets to the Soul Circus.
I'm familiar.
Now, we had, so my producer was a guy named Xavier, black guy, he was like a college basketball player. He was just like one of the most unassuming people that you would ever meet. And he was just, but gigantic, soft-spoken, and a hell of a writer and everything. He was just like, great dude. And
we were like the total package, that guy.
He really was. He was just like, he was handsome. He was just like, but like, he had the whole package. I was just like, who wouldn't want to be with this giant man? But we were like, hey, X, what's the Soul Circus like? He goes, oh, the Soul Circus? Yeah, that's just nothing but Rottweilers. It's just like, that's horrible, man. we were just like messing around. I was just like, dude, that's great.
That's funny. That's funny.
But I always think that whenever I think circus now, I just think of just a bunch of dudes and like they're putting out like exhibits playing in the background or something like that as opposed to regular circus music.
What was the name of that one clown that they ended up paying like $1 million to be part of? I want to say it's Ringling Brothers. There was like that one super famous clown.
Was it Bozo? Because
no, it's like Rollo. That's the name of the clown, and he was like the world's greatest clown, and I can remember I had a friend who knew way too much about the circus, and we're in our 20s or whatever when Rollo joins Ringling Brothers, and he's like, oh man, I can't believe they got Rollo. And I was like, is he like the best clown ever? And he's like, well, the guy has like $1 million contract to be with Ringling Brothers, so yeah, he's the world's greatest clown. And then and I'll never forget this, and he's like, and here's the thing about him, real strong. I was like, what does that mean? How does that make you a better clown?
It makes you better at everything.
Real strong.
Well, I think that might be a thing, though, because I think clowns might be strong people, because I think the guy that, get this, so like when I was in elementary school, we had a guy come to school to teach some clowning stuff. So everything from your juggling to that, the little thing that you balance on the board on the little thing or whatever.
On the ball.
Yeah. And like he would teach you like basic miming skills to a degree. It was like some of it was kind of fun just because, when you're, a kid learning.
Yeah. When you're a kid, you're like, hey, we're not learning math right now.
Yeah. You're learning to mime, someone, brushing their teeth or something that's across from you. So it's like, it's kind of fun and stuff like that. But like, I would say he was one of those dudes that like, you could try to push him over and you couldn't get him or anything like that. He had some of that circus crazy crap going on and stuff. So he was one of those dudes. So I wouldn't be surprised if all those clowns are just like, got that kind of crazy country strongness going with them.
So when we start talking about how strong Rollo the Clown is, does that mean we've exhausted our show?
I think it does. It means that we have to ask ourselves, does this movie fall on the scale of art or fart? Bruce, let's start with you.
It's going to be straight up art for me. I like the musicals, man. Musical theater is something I'm always on the lookout for. It'll probably show up again a couple times a year, so I hope it's not too miserable. It could be our new animation. I don't know. We'll find out.
Oh my god! Oh my god! That sounded like a threat.
Hey, look at this. Sean's going to Africa. Who knew? He just wants to take a trip.
He's got a cold.
For the next 6 weeks? I don't know how that works, but hey.
Oh my god! I literally that hit me like a threat. For me, it's fart. I mean, I just don't like musicals, man. Like I just don't. And this is a musical.
No, and it's a musical that does a lot of musical stuff in it, and is one that's fairly singing a good bit. It's not like you've got 3 numbers in it. There's like 15 numbers.
And you were talking about the production design in this movie. What production design are you talking about? Because there's no backgrounds to this thing. It's like
it's the live stage feel.
It's the live stage.
They have the foreground element. They have some foreground elements, and then there's the CG. I'm guessing backdrops that they're standing in front of, and it's just.
But
nothing for me here.
I enjoy all the transitions. I think it's shot.
You got to make
well.
The whole world exist between the rags, man. Between the rags.
For me, this is an art one. I enjoyed this. It's better than I remembered. I guess I did enjoy it the first time. I think the first time though, I really was kind of just thinking, none of this happened. Ain't none of this going on. He hated these people. I'm like, I promise you, he spit on all of these people and said a lot of really bad things about them in their background life. I can promise you that he wasn't.
Well,
nice.
I mean, the movie Ed Wood. Ed Wood was nothing like that.
Yeah,
but it's an amazing movie.
Yeah, you just you take it for what it is, and that's what I do with this film. And again, the musical number's good enough. My receiver died this week, so I couldn't hear any surround sound. So I was listening to the TV speakers like a pour. It was awful. Ugh. But despite that fact, though, still did enjoy it. And that Hugh Jackman that dude just delivers whatever he's deciding on doing and stuff. So it's an art for me. We're gonna keep on tracking with some Hugh Jackman here, because next week we're gonna be covering Denis Villeneuve's Prisoners from 2013. So we've seen a little bit of action, we've seen a little bit of singing. Now we're gonna see a little bit of drama. This Hugh Jackman is like he can darn near do anything he wants to, you know.
It is. It's like that.
And what a murderer's row of co-cast that he's got for this movie and stuff. And you got a director just before he kind of hit the real big here and everything. So we're going to have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about next week with Prisoners. Bruce, in the meantime, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
Hey, go straight to YouTube. Look for Werewolf Fighter. It's getting to be werewolf fighting time of the year. It's that season. Please, if you have not yet checked it out, go to YouTube, check out Werewolf Fighter. Werewolf Fighter, Bruce Leslie. It's my short film. It's about 40 minutes. It'll change your life.
Sean, the Acolyte is taking the world by storm. What are we to do about it?
It's on TV.
It's a thing that's on television.
It is on television. We have a podcast called The Acolyte 30 Questions, which we're about to record here in a couple of minutes. And we're damn near towards the end of the run of The Acolyte.
So close.
If you wanna stay current and you want a little something extra to listen to The Acolyte 30 Questions. Also, if you are not a Patreon member, then you're not going to be able to hear the new show that we have coming up. It's called Sean Likes Spaceships, where each week I'm going to be reviewing a movie that has spaceships in it. And so check that out. It's not going to be the thing where it's just all bad movies and making fun of bad movies. I'm trying to find hidden gems, and the first thing up, I'm not gonna call it out, but the first movie that we're doing for Sean Likes Spaceships is definitely a hidden gem. It is quite the watch, super entertaining, and you're not going to be able to hear that show if you do not subscribe to Patreon.
Yeah.
So check it out.
Get yourself that extra show, and of course, vote on what we're watching for next month. Our big giant theme here and everything. Our programming battle royale with cheese. Here are the nominations for that and everything. I'll break down the current standings for that. We've got Meryl Streep genre movies coming in at a current 15%. Burt Reynolds on Wheels coming in at 20%, and a whopping 65% as of right now. Headliner Matthew Broderick coming in at 65%. So,
oh wow.
A lot of people, a lot of good comments and stuff about that. So we're looking good. Robert says, I think the Broderick track would be fun if you go deep. Peter says, love an excuse to watch some Broderick movies. So, people are interested in all these kinds of things. And if you'd like to get your voice heard, head on over to patreon.com/HMP. Join up at any level and get yourself all the fun stuff, including Sean Loves Spaceships, voting, Dinger Zone, all that good stuff. It's amazing, everybody. Join us here next week when we're talking Prisoners from 2013. For Sweet Sean's and Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Anna Portress, reminding you that the only difference between art and fart is an F.